Good morning.
Good morning.
You are in for another special treat today. Today we have Miss Nancy Curole with us. She is the supervisor of turnaround schools in Lafourche Parish. That is a new position that was developed in the last year. Miss Curole taught, I'm not exactly sure what grade level, middle school?
I would love to tell them my
Okay,
story.
well, I'm not going to tell you too much then.
And
But-
what Nichols did for me. So that's
And she was a principal of the first TAP school in Lafourche Parish, where she served there for four years? Almost 4 years. So she is going to speak to you today about the TAP model. You already heard some about the compass model on Monday, and then after she presents her information, she's going to open the floor up for questions that you may have just in general about student teaching or in employment as a first-year teacher. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Breaud. Good morning. I was a principal. Let me back up. I was a teacher for 20 years, mostly middle school, and then I became a principal at Lockport Upper, and then Lockport Middle, and then Raceland Middle. And I really thought I would retire there because I really loved being at a TAP school, but the opportunity came up to spread some of the TAP strategies to other schools in Lafourche, and so now I support 8 schools, 8 low-performing schools that, with sharing some of the TAP strategies, hopefully will improve them. So I'm going to tell you about TAP, and then I'll answer any questions you have about maybe, becoming a teacher. And it's exciting to see where you are and to know what all the possibilities are in the very near future. So I have a PowerPoint that I was asked to present to the academics committee at the school board office, which has probably a lot more information than you guys would be interested in. But I'll kind of use this as a guide. But the research on TAP schools I thought was really interesting. And then when we get to this part, I'll just use the abbreviated version rather than everything I have in the PowerPoint. So TAP stands for Teacher Advanced Placement. And just to let you know, TAP is not a Louisiana initiative. It's a national initiative. And one of the quotes there I thought really exemplifies it well. What makes the biggest difference during the school day is none other than the quality of the teacher in the classroom. Without a talented teacher in the classroom, no technology and no curriculum will make sustained improvement in student achievement. And TAP teachers consistently produce higher student achievement growth than similar non-TAP teachers. So the focus of TAP is on the teacher and continuous professional growth of the teacher. This just kind of shows you Arnie Duncan, the U.S. Secretary of Education, says high quality teachers are critical to accelerating student achievement. Chicago TAP provides teachers and principals with the resources to grow individually and collectively as a school, ultimately benefiting our students. TAP results nationally. Independent studies show that TAP schools outperform non-TAP schools in value added nationwide. Significant percentages of TAP schools are making much more than 1 year of academic growth, and thus closing the achievement gap at an accelerated pace. And this just shows the percentages of schools achieving much more than an average year of student growth. So in TAP schools, the growth from 2005, 6, and 8 has all been higher than the control schools. And this is on a national level, but I'll also share with you some state and district growth. I'm not used to having to use this, so you have to forgive me because it's coming up in bits and pieces. TAP growth in high-need schools. Of course, across the country, at-risk schools, schools that have high-need students, are always looking to build their capacity in teachers and keeping teachers, and so TAP is really prevalent in a lot of high need schools. And again, you can see over the years, the TAP schools have outgrown the non-TAP. The number of schools continuing in TAP has grown, and the high need schools are what's in the yellow. So this is one that's Louisiana-based research, 4th and 8th grade LEAP scores in 07, 08 through 9, 10. The growth in TAP schools compared to growth statewide. And if you look at math and ELA, again, the green is the TAP schools. The change in the percent of students at proficient, because basic or above is proficient, the change in TAP schools was higher in both math and ELA in TAP schools. And this is also showing statewide how TAP schools have closed the gap in percent of students scoring basic or above. So again, that proficiency is what's growing in the TAP schools more than non-TAP schools. The assessment index and SPS results. An SPS score is made up of your 4 assessment indexes. So every school gets an index for ELA, math, science, and social studies. In K through 8 and K through 6, it's totally based on that. In 6 and middle schools, which is 6 through 8 in most of our schools, there is a 5% on an index of how high school ready they are and how many Carnegie units they finish by the end of their 9th grade year. But 95% of the SPS is purely on the assessment indices, how well kids perform on ELA, math, science, and social studies. In high school, it's a whole different SPS component. It's EOC, ACT, grad rate index, so it's done differently. But in K through 8, for the most part, how kids perform on those 4 assessments is what the SPS of the school is. So when you look at the TAP schools in the purple, the change in SPS and assessment index, which everybody in schools pays attention to that because that's accountability, and that's very important. TAP schools are growing at a much higher rate in all 4 assessment areas than non-TAP schools and schools that have left TAP. So the longer they stay TAP, even more growth continues to result. So just to kind of sum it up, in Louisiana, 66 Louisiana schools, primarily high need schools with average free reduced price lunch eligibility. When we talk about high need schools, that's basically what we're referring to. A poverty rate, which is, it comes off of their free and reduced, how many kids are on free and reduced lunch. And so 86% impacting more than 32,000 students each year, found evidence of a positive effect of the TAP system on student achievement using 2 complementary analysis strategies. Found a significant positive effect of TAP on K through 8 assessment index scores, and the 66 TAP schools scored 3.7 points higher on average than non-TAP schools statewide. Also found that the TAP schools had significantly greater assessment index scores than a group of match control schools. The TAP schools scored 5.5 points higher on average than their match controls. So the data is overwhelming that TAP schools have something going on. The impact of the TAP system across 17 schools in Louisiana, including elementary, middle, and high, in urban, suburban, and rural communities. Overall, TAP students significantly outperformed their match students in state tests for all 4 assessments. The SPS of TAP schools improved at a faster rate than the match comparison schools. The SPS also showed that in each consecutive year of implementation over a 4-year period, TAP school students gained more compared to match school students. And at my academics presentation, because remember, TAP is new to Lafourche. We've had 1 TAP school that's in year 4, but our superintendent recently expanded it to 2 other schools in the Raceland area, and 5 Thibodeau schools are pre-TAP schools. I know Dr. Breaud said many of you work at W.S. Lafargue or spend some time there. They're a pre-TAP school as well. And so this is just the trend data for Raceland Middle over the years. If you look at it, TAP came to Raceland Middle in 2012. So even though those first scores, you know, are showing good growth, probably the results really picked up in that second year, because the first year you're learning the TAP strategies probably aren't going to result in, although they did grow that first year, but if you look over time, and they're currently still are a TAP school, there's been growth, good growth, in fact more than many of the schools in the district that are not TAP. So Raceland Middle was chosen as a school to become a TAP school because they were almost in school choice at that time, and so a grant was written to get federal monies to have the TAP model there. And I'm going to tell you, because I hope I made you curious about what is it about TAP. That was the goal of the research. Okay, so the next part is I'm going to talk to you about what makes a TAP school. Okay, what does a TAP school look like? Because you may be interviewing for one, and I really hope you do consider working at a TAP school. So I'm going to kind of use this sheet as a guide. These 4 components are what makes a TAP school a TAP school. So the multiple career paths, all right? One of the research findings, because this model is based on 13 years of research by the Millikan Foundation of what enhances a school structure and climate and teaching. And one of the things is teachers having an opportunity to advance in their career. I mean, we want teachers to stay in the classroom as long as they can, but teachers still thrive on growth and change. So even though you may remain in the classroom, teachers want career opportunities that allow them to gain leadership and also increase compensation. So the multiple career paths are a leadership team. There's a master teacher, and there's usually 2 mentor teachers. It's based on the number of faculty members at a school. So it's usually like 1 master for 25 teachers, 1 mentor for 15 teachers, because the mentors work a little more closely with the teachers. So a master teacher, what is she in charge of? And they have to have a master's degree. They have to have high student performance results, teaching performance results. They mostly present professional development. I'm sure y'all know most teachers meet in professional learning communities at least once a week during the school day, some schools twice a week. And in a TAP school, they're called clusters, but PLCs and clusters are really the same. They're called clusters because you really have either a grade level cluster or a subject area cluster. In some schools, they'll meet in both configurations because teachers need to meet as a grade level and teachers also need to meet as a department. So the master teacher really does all the professional development through the clusters. So she may plan whatever strategies she's going to model for teachers, and also the student work that they are going to analyze and come up with the future strategies. The master teacher is over the mentor teachers. Mentor teachers can still have up to a half a day of teaching assignments, but the other half a day is spent, they go into the classroom supporting teachers. They'll meet with teachers at their planning time to help them plan lessons or work on assessments. But they spend a lot of time in teachers' classrooms that they mentor, giving feedback and support, maybe coaching, co-teaching with them, or sometimes they'll say, you know, why don't you sit and watch me and I'll teach, I'll model this with your students. So that's the mentor teacher. So the multiple career paths, and of course there's increased pay with that. They work a few more days at the beginning of the year and end of the year. So that's always part of a TAP school. Even in the pre-TAP schools, that's the one component they didn't go with all 4 in the pre-TAP schools. They went with the they have a master teacher. So that was how we started at those schools. Number 2, the ongoing applied professional growth. That's that cluster or that PLC structure that every school has, but in a TAP school, it's really focused on the student work. A PLC in a lot of schools could just be teachers gathering and kind of going through, talking about the students, or it may be a little more loosely held. Maybe not, but it could be. But in a TAP, in a cluster professional development, it's very structured. There should be new learning for the teacher based on data, and normally student data or observation data, but the learning is directed at growing the teacher to impact the students. So it's much more structured of a PLC. Instructionally focused accountability. That one is the rubric, the instructional rubric. You heard Ms. Tozan, the principal at W.S. Lafargue, talk about compass. In a TAP school, they don't use compass, they use TAP, the TAP instructional rubric. And it is similar, of course, the same things that go into a efficiently run classroom are similar. In TAP, though, there are 12 domains, and the descriptors at proficient, because it's a 1 to 5 system rather than 1 to 4 like compass, 3 is proficient. So that's really what you're shooting for, because in a TAP school, a 3, if a teacher is working at a 3, it means her students are gaining 1 year's growth in learning. And isn't that our goal? That they gain at least 1 year in growth. If a teacher is performing at a 4, it is the same, correlated with a student learning more than 1 year's growth. So that classroom would look a whole lot different than someone who's teaching to the grade level standards only. And a 5 is a teacher whose students are gaining more than two or more years in learning. So the rubric is really very defined as far as the descriptors compared to compass. I don't know if I have an example of it, but I will answer some questions about it if y'all have any. But basically, the evaluators are certified. You have to go through a week-long training in Baton Rouge, and you have to take a test, and you have to match. Within 1 on 8 of 12 indicators. And then after you become initially certified, every year after that, you have to continue to certify online and match the national the rater score within 1 on 8 of 12. So what I like about it is it holds everybody on a leadership team a lot more reliable, because we all know what we're looking for. We have conversations about what we're looking for, so it makes it a lot more of a definitive system. So that's the instructionally focused accountability. And the last way a TAP school looks different than a non-TAP school is the performance-based compensation. And so teachers in a TAP school have the opportunity to earn bonuses each year based on their performance in the classroom. And it's based on that, their students' achievement, and the entire school's achievement growth. So it's really 3 things: the teacher's performance, her students' performance, and then the whole school's growth. Because in a TAP school, we're all working to grow the school. So, does anyone have any questions so far about a TAP school? Yes.
Is TAP more of a temporary thing, or is it permanent?
That's a good question.
For each school?
Well, because increased funding is a part of it, you have to have a superintendent and a school board that's behind it. But because of all the research, and the state of Louisiana, Superintendent John White has just, they've allocated more grant funding toward TAP, and he's said that TAP expansion is going to be part of Louisiana's mission. Superintendents have paid attention, and in fact, that's how Lafourche got increased from the 1. I asked my superintendent if she would come to the national conference this year, and she did. And when she experienced it, along with other superintendents in this area, they realized that that's a good place to put your extra funding. So right now, I'm thinking for the next few years, and of course, with growth, if all of the schools that are now TAP or pre-TAP make the growth that Raceland Middle did, I know she'll continue to find the funding. Terrebonne has a TAP school this year. The number of TAP schools in this region has grown. So my hope is it continues, at least in the high need schools. And the reason for that is high need schools have difficult time drawing and maintaining teachers. If we can get them in, a lot of times they don't stay. And so when there's in a TAP school, the support for teaching is there, and the culture becomes everybody really helps and supports each other. And so we have a better chance. Teachers will stay for that, you know. So that's my belief why TAP schools work so well in high need schools, because we have a difficult time keeping a stable staff. And it's unfortunate because children in high need schools need high quality teachers more than anybody else. So I know I answered more than you asked for, but my hope is TAP remains. If not, the strategies that are involved in a TAP school are going to spread to other schools, because you know they're already asking, well, if we can't have TAP, just show us what y'all are doing. You know, we just want to steal some of that. So, and of course, we're about the whole district getting better, not just our high need schools. We want everybody to grow. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yes.
What are the TAP schools in the parish?
The whole Raceland feeder school system, Raceland Lower, Raceland Upper, and Raceland Middle. And we did that to try to collect some data. We had that one TAP middle school, but you know, what happens is if they're coming in and those needs haven't been identified, and then all of a sudden in middle school you try to fix it, it's kind of hard. So we thought by having TAP schools and a whole feeder system, pre-K to 8, we really could track the data and say, well, look, it must be TAP because we had the data before. And so, but the 5 Thibodeau schools that are pre-TAP this year are Thibodeau Elementary, W.S. LaFargue, South Thibodeau, East and West Thibodeau. And so the plan by our superintendent is they're going to be pre-TAP this year with the plans of being full TAP next year. And of course that's depending on funding as well. Yes.
You said there was a TAP school in Terrebonne Parish?
Yes. It is, I have it in my PowerPoint. I'm going to say Legion.
What's your school?
Wait,
It's either
is there a Legion Park?
Yeah.
I think it's an elementary.
Yes.
Do they call them clusters?
No, they call them PLC.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, maybe they decided to do that not to make teachers feel like it's something entirely different, but the model surely should be that it is a different model, but the name is, you know, but I'm pretty sure it was Legion Park.
I have a question.
Yes.
You talked about how the evaluators are certified and go through training.
Yes.
For Compass, they don't have to do that? Or
No, there is a training, because I have to get it, because I'm not, when I became a principal at Raceland, when Compass was new, I just became TAP trained, so I'm not Compass trained. And so there is training, I'm going to have it. I just know compared to any training I've had before, it's much more intense. On the front end, you know, a week long, and really stressing all the different ways an indicator can look in classrooms, because it's not going to look the same in everybody's classroom, but yet they could still meet proficiency. And then I like the follow-up training every year after, and Compass definitely doesn't have that. It has the initial training, but after that, you know, that's it. And so I really like knowing that my skills are staying home, and I find it helps with teachers because they're very clear on what we're looking for. And I think if you talk to TAP teachers in a TAP school, probably what they would say they like about a TAP school more than anything else is the collegiality of that cluster and how dependent on one another they are, and sharing and helping, and that just becomes the norm. The second thing I think they would say is the rubric, or they might say the money, the extra bonus. But I don't, research shows that might get people into a school, it doesn't keep them there. I mean, it's not that much money. But I think the rubric being so clearly defined and the goal being a 3, you know, where everybody thinks in Compass, you know, if I don't make a 4, I'm not that. In 3, we know you can't be a 4 and a 5 every day. I mean, you can't. You know, you shoot for that, and you have those days where you go, yes, today I was a 4. My kids worked at a 4, you know. But to be a 3 is doable. So I really, again, I'm not trained in Compass. I'm familiar with it because I've been evaluated on the leadership, the Compass Leader rubric, but I just like the definitiveness and the ongoing certification process.
Is it more student-centered or teacher-centered?
Well, I think the cluster, I think it has the appearance of being teacher-centered because teachers make it happen. But everything in the cluster is about student work. I mean, I had been at PLCs for my whole career and had never really focused on student work. We brought student data in when we got the test results or benchmarking results, but we never brought student writing in. We never really brought in examples of their work and looked at what they were missing and why. You know, we looked at the big picture and maybe why they were missing it, but we didn't focus on that daily or weekly student work.
So on the evaluation for the TAP model, are they getting judged based on how much their students interact and talk to each other, or is it how the teacher teaches?
Well, I mean, the students talking to each other is on both Compass and TAP, because students really can't be at the intellectual engagement level if they're not talking or writing. And that's something teachers have to learn, because, you know, in the beginning, your first 3 years, you focused on what you do. You should, because what you do usually impacts what they do, or if they're interested, or if they listen, or if they get it. But as you grow as a teacher, you're going to realize you have to look at them to determine what you should be doing, you know. So I think it's so tied together, but we're trying to impact teachers to grow students. So it looks like the focus is on teachers, as it should be, but then all the teachers' work is about what the students are doing and how that's growing and changing. So we keep more of a pulse on it now than we probably did at one time. We always waited for the assessment data, you know, to kind of see if there was growth. And now you want to be looking at student work weekly and making those adjustments weekly. And if it's a school-wide need, which in a lot of high need schools, it's reading comprehension. So then everybody in the school should be tackling that problem. Even though math might have its own issues, you know, science and social studies might have their own issues. If the majority of our kids are not performing well on reading comprehension, we've got to find out why, and then everybody's got to target it. So like in Raceland, one year, it's always reading comprehension, but one year we started with annotating and highlighting for main idea, because we just didn't feel like they could even tell the main idea of it. And once that 9 weeks, everybody focused on it, every teacher, I mean ag, you know, facts, PE, everybody in the TAP school does the strategy that the students need. And then as those results come up, and we're seeing that, and we're like, you know, they're annotating and highlighting well, you know, they're doing pretty good with it. Let's move on to the next strategy. So if you can annotate and highlight, you know, maybe they should be able to summarize. So then the next cycle, we focused on them writing summaries across the school, everybody doing it. And then the third cycle, right before testing, we went into citing evidence. So that group of kids really grew their scores, and, you know, we attributed it to identifying their needs, finding a strategy that they could use, that would help them, and then, moving on from there. So it sounds simple, but, it's just sometimes your work can get lost in a school and all the other things you have to do. Good questions. The only other thing it's hard to remember back because this is my 30th year, but I was sitting in here and I just am so happy for you guys because I did not realize when I was sitting in here to become a teacher what the next 30 years would bring with my education degree from Nichols, and how well it would serve me moving to another state, teaching in another state, working in another school district, and knowing enough from this university to be able to collaborate with teachers from across the country and to work in other schools, because things can be said about Louisiana, but we're moving and we're progressing, and the leadership opportunities that have been provided to me from getting my master's and bachelor's here. So there's so many possibilities. I would encourage you to build your career around education. I very much believe in that. There are opportunities to change and grow, because I think sometimes when people leave it, it's because they feel like they can't grow anymore. I know I've changed jobs every 7 years, not on purpose. Good things just came along. And I think the skill set that has enabled me to do that was never thinking I was good enough. Always wanting to know more and grow. Probably being able to get along and communicate with all kind of people. Because when you become a teacher, as when you become a principal, you're not becoming a teacher and a principal for a certain type of school. You may think you are, because you may get hired at a certain type of school and stay there your whole career. I promise you, you're going to have diverse children. So when you're entering into public ed, that would be the best thing I could tell you, to be open-minded and willing to learn anything and everything, because you're going to teach all kinds of children with all kinds of needs, and we believe in education everybody can grow and do better. So we have to model that in ourselves as teachers, as principals, as supervisors. And we try to do that as supervisors in supporting principals. So when you interview, one of the things I always look for as a principal is not only the content knowledge. I mean, I need to know you're bringing that to the table, but a positive attitude about education. I know not everyone is, but there are those of us who are deeply ingrained in what public education does for America and the basis of a democracy. And many of our children are totally dependent on us for the future. This is the last thing I'll say on that one. There's a lot being said about Common Core state standards, but they are standards. They are expectations, and they are good. They are deep reading and writing. And I know as college students, not one of you would say that hasn't gotten me to where I am today, being able to read well and write well. And so that's what it's done from K through 12, make those standards important. I mean, I'm now in 3rd grade classes, and I am blown away by children who are writing organized essays. So has it gotten harder at an earlier level? Yes. Are they capable? Yes. And it is preparing them much better for the opportunities that high school now bring, because there are multiple paths. They can, and it's still a diploma. They can get the core diploma, which enables you to go to a 4-year university right out of high school, or a career diploma, which is still a diploma with an industry-based certification, of which they could go to a community college, which ultimately they could change their mind and go to a 4-year college, but you would have to go the community college route first. But a lot of our students who are going to want to do the career diploma are interested in an industry-based certification. And I think you need to know this as K-5 people, because it's not a high school secret. We now have a career magnet school that children can get industry-based certificates in cosmetology, in culinary. They have state-of-the-art school there, and part of the culinary simulates a ship's kitchen on an offshore rig. There's mechanics, electrical, plumbing. It's awesome because they can still get a high school diploma with an industry-based certification that says I'm work ready. I'm ready to go to work. And so that school was formulated with local businesses and businesses down the bayou that told the school and the educators what we're looking for. Well, you know, we want to hire kids who are from the bayou, but they have to be ready to go to work. We don't have time to train them to be able to do those things. So I'm excited because I think public education is offering better choices for all students. And I say whether they are growing up to live here on the bayou and be eligible for the good jobs that are here, or they want to move somewhere else and be competitive, that's what we do in public ed. We make sure that they have those opportunities. And so that's all I wanted to say. Any other questions about the school system or TAP? Right. All right. Well, it's
Well, we
great.
thank you
Yeah.
so